The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Welcome to the Tim Heale Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to have a chat with Jennifer. Jennifer is a friend of mine. And Jennifer, if you could tell me when and where you were born, and if you can describe what it was like where you grew up, the schools you went to, and the education that you received. So, Jennifer, you're in the room.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me.
You're absolutely welcome.
It's great to be on your podcast. So I was born in the early 70s, and that was in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And Alberta's
Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
Calgary. I have something from Calgary.
Do you?
Let me just bring it up and show you. Check this out.
Wonderful. You
1875 to 1975, Centennial Stampede.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's something that happens. I'm glad you found it. So it happens in our city every year. Well, except for 1 year. There was 1 year it didn't happen. And that was the first year of the pandemic. So 2019, it didn't happen. And even floods, right? Even floods didn't take it down. So growing up in this city has been a privilege, very much. It's an oil-rich province in Canada. Canada being a large geographical country with population widespread across its mountainous plains, the combination of flatlands, wetlands, and mountains and ocean. And so in Alberta, we are on the west side, closest to the province of British Columbia, which is our west coast. So it takes half a day to get to a beach. And I happen to have family that lived on the island. So the schools I went to were, I actually went to preschool. It wasn't, actually, it was my sister who went to preschool. It wasn't me. I went to kindergarten. We didn't have preschool yet. And I keep thinking I went to preschool, but I didn't. It felt like preschool, I guess. Yeah. So kindergarten was half days. It wasn't full days. It was, like now some of them are full days. And all the way through to grade 6, I went to several different schools. I didn't stay in one school until it was actually in high school. So we were 1 to 6 or K to 6, and then 7 to 9, and then 10 to 12, and then whatever schooling you wanted to do after that. And so when I was in elementary, K to 6 is what we call it. I was in probably 4 or 5 different schools. And so there was a lot of adaptation, a lot of, getting to know new people all the time, which is something I'm really good at now.
So what was the reason for this chopping schools like that? What was the reason behind? I mean, did the schools close down because of you, or
yeah, it's all my fault.
or were you that naughty they just got rid of you?
It was that darn snowball fight, There was a rock in that snowball. Nobody knew it. No, I like it. So we were moving. And so my parents had split up when I was young. And so there was some instability in, where we were staying and so we moved a few times. And I think every time we moved, it was for the betterment of our situation. So it was progressive, and I think it was a good thing, to be moving. And so it was just that, you didn't have the same group of kids around you all the time, right? Yeah. So I don't have any elementary children that are still in my life that I could say, well, I've known them since kindergarten. And that's not something I have. I mean, I can reference people that I know who they were, but then we're not long-term friends.
Yeah.
Same kind of a situation happened in junior high, which was 7 to 9. So there was some instability with a move there. And I went to 2 different schools there. 3, actually. You know what? I'll go back to elementary, because at one point I went to grade 6 for part of the year in Canada. And then I went to grade 6 for part of the year in the United States. So, yeah, I went to Houston, Texas. And that was a move that was because of the oil and gas industry. So we were transferred.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's an awful long way to go in the morning to school and back in the afternoon.
That's called the express bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or operate.
Yeah, and it was, I tell you, it was the first time that I was on a school bus. I was always in an area where I could walk to school, even if it was a little bit of a jog. It was always a walk to school situation. And then this was a bus situation. And being in grade 6, it was like drilled into me that you do not miss this bus because, I mean, there was multiple.
No other way of getting there.
No way. And multiple interstates to get me to school and back. So
yeah,
it was, you miss it.
So I'm guessing that because sort of Texas is a big, wide open spaces.
Oh my gosh.
You lived about 5, 10, 15 miles from school and you had to get the bus.
Yeah, that was just, I don't even know now. Like I'd have to bring up a map and go, okay, where did I go to school and where did I live? And but I can remember going out for a birthday celebration, and it was a 3-hour drive to go to where we wanted to go for the restaurant. And it was just crazy, but it was a big to do, and we had to have dinner on the beach. But I got to see Galveston, and I got to see some things that the United States school system is quite a bit different than ours. Their studies are predominantly U.S. They had no idea where I was from or what I was about. I mean, as far as they knew, I came from a place where I lived in igloos. And so it was.
Well, I guess the only thing that you really had in common was the rodeo. Because, Texas is famous for its rodeos as well, isn't it?
Well, and I didn't know that then. And so it wasn't something that actually came up at school. I mean, one thing we had in common was donuts. But, so there was really music. I mean, I think some of the ways that we actually came together was, being that young, it was music, so.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was their anthem that got sung every morning. And it was like, I was the one kid in class that had the choice whether or not to sing. And it was like, oh, wow. So yeah, definitely felt a little bit outside.
Did you get picked on because if you didn't sing it?
No, I never got picked on at all in school. No, that wasn't.
You were lucky.
No. Yeah, I'm very lucky. Yeah. And I didn't tolerate much either. I've never been one to tolerate environments that are, if I don't like
toxic.
it, I don't stick around. I just, if you want to be mean, then you go find somewhere else to be mean. I just wouldn't have anything to do with it. So.
So how long were you down in Texas for?
Just finished the school year. I was back up here for grade 7. So was very short period of time. I would say probably 6 months, 8 months, not even. Yeah, it was a very short, because we got transferred down there and then we got transferred back.
Yeah.
So it was different. It was definitely different. I liked it. I had a dog.
So did that have an impact on your education at that time when you went up into grade 7? Were you held back at all or were you advanced?
Yeah, it was neither. So what happened was, moving from Canada, grade 6 here is still elementary school. And then in the United States, this where I was in A-Leaf area of Texas, Houston, Texas, the school was a middle school. So instead of being in junior high here for grade 7, I was moving to a new school and a new middle school. So the next level of school systems at grade 6. So when I came back and went to junior high, it was nothing. With the transition that you would have from grade 6 to grade 7, I had already done. And so so
you were able to walk around with a bit of a swagger then.
Well,
I've done this. Check me out.
And I just it never felt foreign to go to a different school. It just never felt, because I was doing it often enough,
Yeah.
that it was just, for me, it was commonplace. Whereas if you take 6, 7 years in one school and then move a child, it's different, right? It's more disruptive. And I
Yeah.
learned how to adapt with it. I was used to the disruption, if you could say that. I mean, it became commonplace for me.
No, brilliant. So
Yeah.
you adapted very well to changing schools all the time.
Yeah, I think I
And
only ever got suspended once, and that was in high school. So
well, we might
I
come
think
on
I
to
did all
that.
right.
I think we might come on to this suspension in high school. So what caused that then? Was it that stone in the snowball or something
No,
slightly more sinister?
that was Malibu straight up on an empty stomach for a Halloween party. And I don't remember the party at all.
Oh
But it
dear.
was a school Halloween party, and I was apparently dressed as a black cat. And one of the girls I hung around with at the time, she was actually the maid of honor at my wedding. And she looked after me all night long.
Hmm.
So hid
Was
me in
she
the
the one that
bathroom.
instigated the need for being looked after?
It was the first time I had actually decided to go to a school dance. And I say that because I didn't participate in any of the school events, and I didn't hang around after school. I had a spare before and after, at the beginning and at the end of the day, so that I could go to work. So all the way
Mm,
through high school, I was a full-time employee at a restaurant or at the drive-in or wherever it happened to be at the time. And I would go do a 3 to 11 shift
mm,
after school, at least 3 or 4 days a week, and then one weekend day.
mm,
And that was my priority. I had that job, and I was dating a young man I met when I was in, I would have been in grade 8 or 9. I met him, and then he had moved on to another school. So I didn't really have any reason to stick around the high school or hang
mm,
around the high school kids. I had this boyfriend that didn't attend the school, and we worked together. And there was this job. And so the one time I decided that I was going to hang out with some of these kids that I sat with whenever I was at school. Um, and there just happened to be alcohol at this one girl's house when we were all getting ready for our Halloween party and painting each other's faces and doing each other's hair. And I didn't bring it, but I drank it.
and you
So
got into so much trouble.
I did.
How long were you suspended for then?
I was yeah, I was suspended for being 2 days for being drunk at the high school Halloween party.
Hmm.
And I remember
So
my
you
dad coming to pick me up. He was unimpressed, but not too unimpressed. I mean, not a normal teenage kid, right?
yeah.
But I went out of the school over his shoulder like a fireman hauls somebody out of a fire,
Mm.
and spent the next two days in bed.
Getting over your hangover.
Oh my gosh.
But see,
Oh
the
my
problem
gosh.
I would have had, I wasn't ever in school long enough to be able to get suspended.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little about, do I get to hear about that?
Well, so I got put off school at an early age,
Okay.
and it all came about via a bully.
Okay.
And now this was in sort of infants junior school,
Mm.
and this bully started to pick on me. So I asked the young man what I should do about it. He
Mhm.
said, "Best thing you can do, son, is give him a thump and make it a good one, because if you don't, he's going to go give you a good hiding." Anyway,
Oopsie.
all anybody saw was me thump him going flying back into the school
Oh.
pond. I get dragged off to the headmasters for 6 of the best. And that kind of gave me that sense of injustice
Mhm.
that put me off of school for an awful long time.
Mhm.
So when I eventually went up into our secondary school, which is kind of your high school,
Okay.
um, I fell in with a bit of a crowd that we tended to go and get registered and then we'd scarper for the rest of the day. So I wasn't in school for a lot. And it wasn't until I failed the test to join the army the first time round that I had to long hard look at myself and thought, I need to start bucking up, get a bit of education so I can pass this test the next time.
Yeah.
So when I went into school first week, after teachers thought I was a new student.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's
half of
almost
them
a
had
good
never
thing.
seen me.
Well, at least you didn't carry your past with you.
Well, that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I managed to get away with it. And the next time I went to take the test for the army, a mate came with us and gave us a few of the answers. So managed to scrape in.
Welcome.
It was either that or I'd have ended up in prison sometime.
Oh no. Well, luckily that didn't happen.
No, and here I am, 60 odd years later. Look at me. I'm resorted to talking to other people to do a podcast.
There you go. Yeah.
So, high school.
Yeah.
So you've had a 2-day suspension for drinking.
Yeah.
Very naughty of you.
Yeah, and that was, I can't even remember if that was grade 11 or 12, but yeah, it was the last. I mean, it wasn't I wasn't one to get into trouble or to even be there much at all. And in grade 12 I actually was lucky enough to go with the travel club to China. So I had a bit of a travel bug, and I love traveling, and so don't get to do it as much anymore, but I can remember, any chance I got, we were either 1 hour drive or 3 hour drive or 5 hour drive. And it wouldn't be a stretch to go for a weekend to the island, Vancouver Island on the West Coast, and hang out and then come back, or, but China was an experience. I mean, it gave me gratitude and perspective at a very young age. With the way I saw.
China did you go?
Sorry?
Whereabouts in China did you go?
Oh, 6 different spots. So we went to Hong Kong. Yeah, and so there was 6. There was a tour around, and some of them were really small villages. We took trains and we took buses and we, of course, airplanes. I mean, it was the first time I had been out of, besides the States, I'd been to a country other than North America. And without parents. There were no parents on this trip, and there was nobody else except for schoolmates. And I was also treated as an adult, because ultimately, I was an independent student in the sense that I had my own room and I didn't have to get parents' signature for, being absent or any of that stuff. But so I was very, it wasn't like I was part of the group even. It was almost like it was one of the adults on the tour. That's how it felt. It didn't feel like I was going to school without the kids at school. And it had been, I think I grew up really fast. But that experience was, just seeing the way people lived and, the lack and the differences in, just services, even like in a country like coming from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This city is so beautiful and so clean with regards to, the services that they have, the infrastructure for transportation. I mean, if you live here, you probably think could be better, but at the same time, if you go anywhere else, when you relate it to anything, like 5 lanes of traffic was China, and the streets were dirty, and the sewers, the plumbing, they didn't have a regular bathroom. It was a hole with a hose in the ground, so you would see children going to the bathroom on the side of the street. I mean, this is 89. Okay, so
Yeah.
And things have changed a lot since then. I mean, it's a few years.
Yeah.
But back then, for me, it was very eye-opening, and I knew how much I had and how much I came from, and I didn't take it for granted. I was very, very grateful, that I had been born in a rich city, in a rich province, in a rich country, and didn't have the illness and the population density and the
Yeah.
sanitary concerns. It was very forefront for me at that age even.
So that was quite an experience then.
It was, yeah. It was.
So what happened when you graduated from high school?
So I had to come back to Calgary to write my high school exams because the fella I was dating at the time had gone through a culinary program at SAIT, and they had offered him a position to run a cafe in Banff, Alberta, and he had asked me to go along with him. So we were entrepreneurs running a cafe before I even graduated from high school. So
is this for the ski season?
Well, it was there. It did go through ski season, but I mean, this was
Banff is known for its ski resort.
For all kinds of things, but definitely for the ski hills. Yeah. So that was May, June when I had started with him running the cafe, and then we went through the summer, and the summer's extremely busy too because people come for all the hiking and wonderful camping and just all the sightseeing. And then of course it's very transient. There are people from all over the world that come to work there for a summer and come and go. And so we did that for about 9 months before, it wasn't really the kind of thing that I wanted to do. It's not that I didn't want to be an entrepreneur and I didn't want to run a cafe, but we were young. We were together for 4 years-ish. And now all of a sudden we're living together and working together. And, we didn't have a relationship anymore. And so what happened?
I suppose.
Yeah. And so when the relationship fizzled, the work relationship fizzled, and the entrepreneurship fizzled, and I stayed in Banff for a little while and did some, I did all kinds of things. I did chambermaid. I cleaned rooms at hotels. I was a hotel clerk. I helped make pizza at one of the curling rinks where, so I just wanted to stay for a while. I didn't want to come back right away. And it was the first time I was really kind of on my own, but again, not on my own because I was in staff housing and there was, other people and always, but again, I did eventually come back to Calgary. I always come back.
It's got that big return spring on it for you then.
Yeah. Like this is home. This is where my family is. This is, there hasn't been anything else that has as large of a draw to keep me away long enough. I just haven't found it.
Yeah. So what did you do once you returned?
So for a while, I was just odd jobs. I worked at hotels, and then I got placed with a temporary agency in the financial planning industry. I went in as a receptionist and was hired on probably a month later. And then I entered the financial services industry. I became a trader and I became an assistant and I became executive assistant and ultimately became a financial advisor. But that began 18 years of staying in one industry. And it was all because of a temporary placement agency that placed me to fill in for a receptionist.
Crikey. Oh, that
right.
That's crazy. That generally it doesn't happen. I mean, once you get into that temporary mouse wheel or hamster wheel, then you tend to sort of one contract to another contract, but to stay in one industry and climb the greasy pole, I suppose.
Yeah.
So you took all the exams to become a full-on financial advisor.
I did. So that's where I didn't really go to post-secondary education after high school. I did industry-related courses and exams. So I did the you have to do a registered representative class here in it's all correspondence. In Canada, it's registered representative. So you go through, basically they teach you all the liability that you're going to have if you want to pursue this career in this industry, and then went on to take the Canadian securities course and the professional financial planner course and the wealth management course and the ethics course and and the options trading course. And in that industry, there's continuing education credits all the time. You have to continually be keeping your education up, and there's a certain number of those credits you have to get every single year to keep your licenses. And so I ultimately ended up taking insurance and accident and sickness and all of that as well, and had basically the most rounded, I thought, education for the industry that I could get. And then in 2010, I left.
After all that time.
After all that time.
So what was the catalyst to make you walk away from a lucrative employment?
They say just because you've got all the education doesn't mean, those who do, those who can't teach. This, I think, is one of the, but because I had all the knowledge in my head, didn't make it a lucrative endeavor for me. I mean, my child was born in 2005, and I lost the zeal for working in the industry for other people then. And then, so I wanted to go independent and became an entrepreneur again. And that was hard, being a new mom and looking for business and, working weekends and evenings and all of those. It was hard stuff. And I was separated in 2010 and had to make a decision. It was a lifestyle decision. Do I want to be a single parent and give away my evenings and weekends to this industry, or do I want to look for something else? And so that was it too. There was the financial part of it. I mean, being independent, I had to spend a lot of money on errors and admissions insurance, and I had to spend a lot of money on relicensing and a lot of time on those continuing education credits to keep my licenses. And then, of course, if you're spending your evenings and weekends with clients instead of your family, for me, there wasn't a choice. There just wasn't. I was not willing to take that time away from my child. I just wasn't willing to.
So that's what drew you away from that business. So what did you do?
Well, so I'm entrepreneur again, and I'm consulting other people who are looking to build businesses with families. And I ended up doing a lot of networking. I ended up at a lot of trade shows, and the play groups with mommies and daddies that were building businesses and raising children became my clients. And so I was business consulting and helping those people build systems into their life that help them be better parents and follow up in their businesses and use free tools out there like Facebook and social media and follow up systems to make sure that they were
and the rest of it.
Yeah. And then too, at trade shows, I mean, there were a lot of people who didn't have any way of capturing leads. Like they'd stand there behind their table and they wouldn't talk to anybody, and they'd expect people to come to them. And it was like, okay, well, there's some things we can do here. Number one, have something to give away at your table so that you can capture names and addresses so that you can talk to them after the event, and give something away of value. It doesn't even have to relate to your business. Maybe it's a gift card, whatever, that gives you the opportunity to say, hey, you were at my table, you filled out a ballot for this gift card. How was the trade show? Would you like to know more about our business? Would you like to get on an email list? Like, none of those things were being utilized then. And I'm talking, this is 2010, but from between 2005 and 2010, basically this is how things started. And I've just always looked for opportunities to do whatever I can with regards to free tools in the online space. Ever since. And it just keeps taking on a new name or a new vein of, what do you do next? First it was systems girl, so because, you need systems. I'm the systems girl, so it was coaching for the most part, and on a business level, on a personal level. And a lot of it was taking a look at a family's budget to say, okay, here's where you're bleeding. This is something that you can do to fix that. And then what do you want to do with it? How can we make it so that your life is easier? Do you have a filing system? Do you have a way to follow up? Like, do you have a database management system? So again, it was, where are they? What do they need? What's the first thing we can do to make life easier for them? And it just kept evolving. I mean, at one point I was running as an accountability coach, just making sure that people did what they said they were going to do, and to follow through.
I mean, if somebody's sort of setting up a business and they go to a trade show to try and sell their business, and they're just standing there and not doing anything, they're not going to have a very successful business. I mean, from my experience of if you want something to happen, you've got to go and make it happen. You can't wait for it to do it itself.
Yeah. And I know I'm not the type of person that likes when I'm walking through a trade show to be approached and pulled in and all that stuff. I'd like to, go and have a look. But at the same time, there are ways to do it so that you're not bothering people,
Yeah.
So
that's the other side of the coin, of course. I mean, you just want to have a wander around, and then you see something that takes your fancy. That's when you want to go and have a parley with someone. You don't want people sort of try and drag you in and try and flog you something that you're not really interested in.
Yeah, right.
And I've seen that at shows all the time. I tend to go to quite a lot of boat shows, so you're walking around a boat show, and if somebody's got say a canoe, but I'm not interested in canoeing, and they're trying to sell you a canoe, they're flogging a dead horse. But if
so
they really push about it,
the really important thing there to know, and this is the thing that I tried to teach people, is that you don't want that person as a client anyway. You don't want that person as a lead anyway. So why are you putting the energy there? They're not the person that's looking for you, and it's a waste of your time and energy.
Yeah.
So your energy would be better put into making something happen in your booth that draws attention, that relates to the people who are actually looking for you.
Yeah. So that's where the stall itself attracts the people in. If somebody wants what you're selling, providing you've got it set out in a way that's going to attract them, they will come to you. I'm sure they will.
Creative displays, I find work really well. If you had something that drew people into your area, whether it was just the draw that you have, or whatever it was that you were using for a lead generator, the gift card giveaway, or whatever it was. I mean, that's where they're coming in. That's where you can start to have a conversation. I mean, be in front of the booth, not behind the booth, because anytime you put something in front of you,
it's a barrier.
You're less approachable, right? I mean, there's something in between you and me. Now I'm not as easy to reach, right?
Yeah.
It feels like there's an obstacle between us. So that was the same thing with the table, and be out front, be approachable, smile, have casual conversation. If
Yeah.
they ask a question, follow it,
Yeah.
So you didn't have to be abrasive in someone's face.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, for me, if I was there at a trade show, I just have to stand around and look gorgeous, and people will be attracted to me anyway.
There you go. Right?
So
just smile, Tim. That's all we need. We just need your smile. That's it.
Works every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So taking you forward then, so 2000, between 5 and 10, you started to set this up, and I mean we've got 12 years from then. So how did it progress? Where did it take you?
So, well, no matter where we went, it was always a matter of how does this fit lifestyle? How is this conducive to creating flexibility in my life so that I can be available for my child? How does it lend to my ability to drive back and forth to school, volunteer, be around for all of those special events? That was the priority for me. So from 2010 on, there were times where I took on contract jobs. I worked for an oil and gas company for 3 years, where my job was to set up appointments, selling basically snubbing and coil to completions individuals in the oil and gas. So, honestly, I went for coffee and I had lunch a lot. And that was always, it was always done when my child was not at school. It was always done before and after drop off and pick up from school. So I always had the flexibility to do when I wasn't needed at home. Home was always priority.
Yeah.
And I also worked sorry, go ahead.
So far too many people live to work instead of working to live.
Yeah, that's so not me. It's never going to be me. I would do without the money. I would do without the things. I would do without the, whatever it is the fancy clothes or the fancy shoes or the bags or the cars or the houses I don't need them. What I need is my kid. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else. And so I would have a real problem at the end of my life looking back and saying, oh, great, look at all that money you've got in the bank. You're dying tomorrow. But guess what? You don't even know your kid.
Yeah.
It would
and
kill
you can't
me.
take it with you.
No, you can't. Nope. But every moment that we've ever had and every time that we've been able to be together and I've been able to be there, that, she forgot something at school. Can you bring it to school for me? Of course I can. Of course I can. Yes, I can. I don't have to say no to that. I can drop everything and I can reschedule my schedule because you're homesick today. And I don't have any guilt around. I don't have to worry about losing a job because of that. So,
Mind you, having said that, I mean, Mum, I've left that at home. Can you bring it to school? Yes, I can. However, next time, don't leave it at home.
yeah. It's like there's only so many times I'm willing to do this before you have to learn to be more organized, But at the same time, if it's important, like cleats for rugby are kind of important, So you're going to run around in your boots. Yeah. So, I mean, I've looked for opportunities to educate myself, to build ways for myself to be organized and to try as much as possible to help others. Whether there are some times that I've taken on jobs that looked like they were going to be a good fit to find out that they weren't. I mean, I did don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that job or that profession at all. It was just not a fit for me. Like I had worked on contract for a property management company. I was a condo administrator and I helped them out with, their contracts and for a while. And again, it was me sitting in somebody else's office for a long block of hours felt counterintuitive and counterproductive to me. Just sitting, like, I mean, there was not that there was a lack of something to do, but I mean, an 8 to 4 punch a clock lifestyle didn't have a lot of flexibility for me. And, I did the best I could in those situations, but I've always been, let's massage the schedule to see how we can let things work and see how whatever's coming into my environment can live versus having to say no because I'm restricted by this or that. And it's been not somebody, there's a lot of people that really don't understand the lifestyle. They don't understand the need to have control over one's environment, flexibility, time, and it's my life. It's my time.
Yeah.
It's, people who work for other people punching a clock and having to be a certain place 9 to 5 every day, don't have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all it's doing is making somebody else rich.
Right?
Right. And that just falls into that, I mean, they're working to live, not living or living to work rather than working to live. So yeah, I can see where that's where you're scoring big points there.
Yeah, building a life, not making a living.
Yeah.
I don't want to be giving my whole life away to just anyone or anything. So it's been what comes in the 12 years, as you'd asked. I mean, what's gone on has been a variety of different things because, well, whatever comes into my world, I try to entertain if it feels like a good fit. And, that hasn't always been a good fit. But I found that everything online has a big draw for me. Building websites, building social media accounts, building online presence, building visibility. It's like this is a playground for me, So really, everything over the last 12 years has had that similar vein. How do I build a system? How do I build a CRM? How do I make a website? How do I have all my social media accounts linked to it? Whether it's whatever it happens to be. I mean, I've lived under so many different entities. I don't even remember them all anymore, but they've all had that common vein. It's like online. What can we do online? How can we use our free tools to build awareness? In charities as well. I mean, I've spent some time doing work for charities, and it's all, how do we build awareness? How do we build visibility?
So you're now still living in Calgary?
Yes.
Okay. Let's have a chat about Calgary. I'm intrigued to know a bit about Calgary and particularly the Stampede. I know. It's crazy. I'll tell you a little bit about me and rodeo.
Okay.
When I was in Berlin, which was a little while ago, I was there. We were there from 1978 to 1980, and the Americans had the European Rodeo Association, and they had a branch in Berlin, and I went and joined it. And we used to have odd competitions. They had one of these bucket machines, so they set up a bucket machine for a competition evening or something like that. It was great fun, and I was particularly okay at bareback rather than bull. I wasn't over keen on bull riding because that was sort of dangerous. It's got horns and things, and they might stamp all over you. So I thought that was, but riding bareback on a bronc was quite good fun, and you could score points, and they used to
the
set
real
up
one or a machine? The real one or a machine?
The machine,
okay, because like,
but the only place you could actually do the real thing was down in sort of Western Germany because it was they had a few down there that you could go down, but we never managed it. But we did raise a bit of money for charity and stuff like that at the Oktoberfest, where we cooked up a load of burgers and stuff like that on a street market. So we raised a few quid for that, and that was good fun working with the guys. So I always fancied sort of going to a rodeo and maybe getting a go on a bonking a bucking bronc. So tell me about the Stampede. Have you ever been to the Stampede? Have you worked at the Stampede? Did you have a go at the Stampede?
So I go to the Stampede almost every year. I think there's only 2 years I can remember in the last 20 that I've missed it. And one was probably because I was sick, and the other was because it didn't happen. They canceled it due to everybody else being sick. And so for years, when my child was little, we would take in the pre-parade for the Stampede, which is the Friday before the Stampede, and the Stampede starts actually that afternoon. There's a sneak peek the night before, and then there's a parade, and then the Stampede's kicked off for the next 12 days, however many days.
Because if I'm right in thinking that the parade goes through the town to sort of drum up the business for it, and then you're out of the ground itself. Do they have different arenas, or is it all the competition done in the main central arena? How does that work?
So there's so much that goes on at the Stampede that I couldn't even tell you all about it. I mean, they even now have stuff they have outside of agriculture even, and outside of livestock now, where you've got BMX competitions, and you've got so really Stampede is the entertainment, like it's Disneyland for kids here in Calgary, and Disneyland for kids, for adults. They definitely have their kid focus. They definitely have their adult focus, but there are so many headliners and bands that come into town for Stampede that it can be a concert fest for every single day that the Stampede goes on. So it's not just the rodeo. It's not just the horses and the bulls and the chuck wagons and the bronc riding. And that's definitely a big part of it. But I mean, there's times where I've gone down to the Stampede grounds and I have not taken in a rodeo or a grandstand show at all. And the only thing I'm down there for is to go to the Big Four building and visit all the trade show stuff, or go down and just visit the art gallery, because I have a huge art gallery down there at the same time. Or I just go down and get my corn dog on the Midway. And, so, I mean, it's got so much variety in it.
So how long does it last then? It's not surely just for the Saturday.
No, it's, I think it's 12 days in July every year. So,
whoa.
Yeah. So Stampede 2022 is going to be, let me see here. Yeah, so July, I think it starts July 8th and goes to the 17th.
Wow.
Nope. Oh, yeah. Yeah, July 8th, because there's rodeo every day from July 8th to the 17th. And then, of course, with the rodeo, there's also grandstand show. And I mean, there's so much that goes on. I mean, CalgaryStampede.com, I think it is.
I'm going to have to check that out. And I guess they'll have sort of live cameras, live feeds for the events that are going on, and big website for it.
Well, they definitely have the CalgaryStampede.com website. Okay, so they break it down into basically they have agriculture and Western events is separate from the rest. So they talk about the competitors and the exhibitors, and you could take in, there's different ways that you could be an exhibitor, those sorts of things too. But there's definitely an entire page that gives you, how to be a visitor and what all the different things that you can explore, because there's rodeo, there's dog shows, there's freestyle motocross, there's, there's concerts on every stage, like Virgin Plus, Nashville North, Coca-Cola stage. The Stampede Show Band is like every day throughout the whole entire event. And then, of course, they've got the Big Four Roadhouse. So there's so many different things, like the parade, the midway, there's even special food and drinks that come in just for that year. And like they'll have a great big culinary feature of what's new at the Calgary Stampede for food. So I mean, it's an event in its grandeur, and it's been going on for so many years. I mean, over 150 years now.
1875, I think.
There you go.
That was the centennial. It was 1975. Yeah. So way over 100 years.
Yeah. So 76.
And I bet back then it was just a rodeo, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, right then I think it was. Was it even a rodeo or just a parade back then? I don't even remember. Like, of course, how would I remember? But anyway, like, I don't know enough of the history. No, I did not. Maybe you know what, Tim? Maybe in a different carnation I did, but not in this one.
Of course, I mean, I've been around forever.
Oh.
But you know when you're talking to somebody on the phone and they're taking your details down, and name, address, and they say date of birth. Because it normally takes a little while to get your date of birth. So I say 5/4/1758. He goes quiet. Can you just confirm your date of birth again, please? Yeah, 5/4/1758. No. Yes, I'm 264. No, you're having me on.
I mean, 1958, right?
No, try it. It's so funny when somebody almost believes you.
Yeah.
I'm 264.
I think they have a hard time just with the 1970-ish part.
Yeah.
It's like when you're putting it in online, you have to scroll like you're doing The Price is Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I've caught out so many people doing that. It's so funny, especially if you're doing it face to face. Somebody's in front of you typing out or writing it down, and they put 1758.
You can definitely test their listening skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, I think we've had a pretty good parlay today.
We haven't talked about how we met, though. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, we could do, yeah.
Yeah.
So, should we tell them? Yeah. Or should we just leave them? Or should we just leave them in suspense?
Well, let's leave them in suspense.
Keep them guessing.
Sure. Yeah.
Mind you, we could promote them a bit.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So Jennifer and I, we met online through a system called Podmatch. And Podmatch gets together guests and hosts. And that's how we first got together. And I think I contacted you first, didn't I?
I don't even remember. It's like a dating service for podcasters and hosts and guests. And so, yeah, I don't know.
It's a great platform for meeting people. I mean, the reason I got into it is because I put my podcast up on Buzzsprout. Mm-hmm. And one day Buzzsprout was saying, need guests for your show. So I put a little pitch up on Buzzsprout, and then admin come back and give me a bit of a roasting, saying, you're not allowed to do that. You've gone against the rules. So I went back, well, what am I supposed to do? You asked me to put it up. And they said, no, you go to Podmatch. So that's how I got to Podmatch. So I looked at it, signed up for it, and I haven't looked back.
Well, I'm kind of the same, but I didn't find out through Buzzsprout. I found out online doing I was actually doing a challenge, a small business challenge, and I'd put a hashtag out on my social media channels, and I was following up on it. And I noticed that one of the persons who had shared that link was promoting the Q1 Pod Pros event. And I went, okay. So I put my podcast for Online for Authors on hold because it started back in 2019. I took it to the podcast platform where I'd been doing really interviews with authors for some time before that. And then I saw it was Sean Tyler Foley who had a post on his profile about this quarterly event. And I went, okay, I'll check it out. Like a podcasting event online. And I had a couple of days that I figured I could fit it in. And you know what? It was so economical too for me to be able to attend that I can't even tell you, like, the ticket. I know the ticket price is going up for Q3, so I don't want to really say what the ticket price is. But
did you watch it all last night then?
Oh yeah, and it was so reasonable, right? So to attend this, and it actually gave me the opportunity to get back into podcasting in a big way. Like, so it took podcasting from Online for Authors platform to many other platforms, and now I'm doing podcast production for other people as well. So having met you and others like you, I've gone from being not only a host but also being a guest, which is totally foreign territory for me. But it's they say this is networking on steroids, right? Podcasting is and being a guest and being a host. So there is no way you can reach as many people as we do this way. So, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, get to know you, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of you.
Oh, great. You do know that I'm currently sat at number 1 as a host.
I did see that this morning.
Yeah, I thought,
so I managed to get up to.
I've done it again.
I managed to get up to number 6 on hosting. The first month I was on the platform, actually, and it was like, what? Surprised the heck out of me, but yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I'm surprised myself, actually, because it's died off the last week or so. I've not been quite so busy, but it's picking up again. So because I managed to stay at number 1 from about I think it was about the 3rd or the 4th of March, all the way through March. I was number 1 host globally on Podmatch, and I've just gone. I've bounced up and down a little bit this month, but I'm back up at number 1 for the time being anyway. So maybe I can make it to the end of the month at number 1 again.
Well, the thing that I found with Podmatch is that as a host, I was so busy. Like, seriously, I like the requests that I had coming in for my podcast have booked me out until August of 2023 for hosting. And it's like, wow, that can be a little overwhelming at first. Like, I mean, I can imagine how many requests you get in. And of course, your podcast, Ordinary People's Extraordinary Stories, it's open to, it's like not
absolutely everybody.
Right. So it fits everyone. So you just have to be absolutely inundated as a host for interviews.
You wouldn't believe.
I might. I might.
I was watching Alex's opening what's name, and he was on about his saying who's your avatar, and he asked her, who do you think your avatar is? So I said, mine's not born yet.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, it's not, because the whole point of this is to leave that legacy for the future generations to look back on what we were doing at this time in history. So my ideal avatar hasn't been born yet.
Yeah. So that gives you some creative freedom.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, everybody, every single person that I've interviewed is special, and I make them feel special.
Yes, you
And I
do.
give them, I give them 100% of my attention, and I
Yeah.
try and ask questions that they don't normally get asked. I get them to rack their brains, get all that grey matter going, to think back what it was like when they were growing up. So when somebody in 100 years' time looks back at this time in history and thinking, "Wow, is that what they were doing? Cool. Didn't they get it easy?"
Yeah. And good luck finding 2 or 3 people that were doing the same thing, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and let me tell you what, being that I do live in the city, I love the city, I actually have a podcast called We Are Calgary for this city. You had me racking my brain over details for the Calgary Stampede. Like I'm searching the website because I'm not an ambassador or
And you've been for
anything
the
for the.
last 20 odd years.
I know, but I'm not an ambassador for the event. So it's like, yeah, but I can come up with some information. I know I can. I can
I
add
love
value here.
putting people on the spot.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for making me think.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.